Hey, HCDA, and welcome back to Modulus, a way too addictive game. But anyway, last time around I made sure we had all the blue upgrades up and running, so now we have the basic buildings all leveled up completely. Don't forget, by the way, there's a couple of upgrades hiding here for tunnel distance and the data center as well, so make sure you pick those up. But this time around we're gonna have to focus a little bit on all this weird yellow stuff. But before we can do that, we're going to have to unlock a whole bunch of new buildings. Um, what I will do before I actually continue is make sure I start making use of this. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Here it is. Blueprint upgrade. I mean, blueprints are awesome. They are relatively expensive to unlock, but shouldn't be too bad. But because I now upgraded all of my buildings, as you can see, there's a whole bunch of stuff. Where's the rest of my factory? There we go. That is now turning into the red and into the yellow, and that's just annoying me. So I want to fully optimize the builds, especially because we can also now have up to 16 cranes per building. So, you know, that also requires a little bit of planning and how do you actually set these up. Okay, here we go, and this is probably something I spent way too much time on, but now I have a blueprint for all the base production lines that we've made so far. Now, something that's a little bit annoying is when you have so many of these lifts, they seem to kind of get into each other's way sometimes. And as you can see, that means that not everything is bright green as I would want to have it ideally. But all in all, the benefit of doing it like this is that I have all my production now on just a couple of islands. I actually increased some of the production as well, thanks to the fact that I can now add in so many more cranes. Something I really should not have done, but I'll just leave it as it is for now, is that you should be smelting locally and then transporting the smelted blocks out of here rather than the raw materials. Because remember, the furnaces do it in a 4-to-1 ratio, so, you know, it's a little bit more efficient to do it in a different way. I do really like the fact that I now have everything on a couple of islands, so that leaves me a lot of room to start thinking about upgrading my production to the yellow stuff. Which is going to require me to make some yellow paint, so let's pick up the Luminite Reactor, the advanced refinery for that yellow pigment at least, not the paint itself just yet. I think let's see, the paint itself is over here. There we go. So yeah, that should, I think, give us all the stuff that we need in order to do what we want to do. I might as well just upgrade the chemical plant while we're at it though, because we have the research materials we need for that. Let's also pick up the supply tank. Look at that. It collects coolant made in the chemical plant. And advanced operators needed to stay operational. Okay, and we have drones that we can supply from A to B to handle that. Let's make sure we unlock the coolant as well. This will add it to the chemical plants list. And yeah, then we have some advanced machines that we'll get to in a second. But I think for now, let's just make sure we get the pigment up and running. Okay, so let's take a look at what we need in order to make the yellow pigment. Now, I've done a little bit of pre-work here in terms of analyzing this, and it turns out that not only do we need to make quite a bit of blue stuff, exactly half everything that we need to make is blue. If you cut this in half, you have 1 part blue, 1 part black, same here, and actually the slices here are exactly half and half as well. If you count up all the voxels, it seems that we need 1 production line in terms of voxels, that is 1 full belt of voxels, I would say, that is going to be blue, and then the other half is going to be, well, different colors, some of it black and some of it the gray white. Then on top of that, it seems like if we look at this, these little cutout pieces here are exactly the pieces we need to cut out here. So if you just have, you know, a 2x8 area and we cut out these pieces and we have the other 2x8 and we stick on the pieces that we cut out here, that's pretty much all we need. And then the remainders we can stitch together and make these lines over here. Okay, that seems like a plan. Now to actually build it. Okay, so let's over-optimize this a little further. We know we need to make this, basically, and then we can make that again and make the other half. And that means since we need 64 voxels times 4, because I can only fit in 4 of these cranes on each side, it means 60 per minute, which means we need 30 per minute in terms of raw materials to make this. Because if we then add another 30 per minute to make that, then we have the exact voxels we need per second to make all of this. So yeah, that should be pretty straightforward. I mean, this is not a hard shape to make. We've done something similar before, so let's set this up. Okay, here we go. This should be it. So we're cutting it into nice little squares over here. Then we're cutting them into nice little base pieces. We're recombining those into the larger pieces you see over here. And we recombine those in order to make the double version, and then just split them off and recombine them once more, and we have the base version. So basically what we want to do with the secondary line is make the same build but then in blue. But hold on, we are also going to need to have another one of these lines making the blue half of this. Now this is going to be pretty similar, I think, so let me set that one up. Okay, so we have this white piece over here, then we have this black piece over here, but simply just splitting off the output, putting it through a monotoner, and then painting the black. Similarly, we have the black piece of this thing over here. Actually, I put it in the wrong place, didn't I? Yeah, hold on. Okay, that's more like it. And then we have the exact same build up here, minus all the monotoners, because we don't need them. But what we do need is to actually make sure this all of the input in here is going to be blue. Something like this, but it also means I need some blue paint, and since I'm using all of the blue paint in my previous builds, we're just gonna have to utilize some of these blue crystals in order to make new paint. Luckily, I have a blueprint for that now, so I can just paste that in and make sure I hook up all the resources. And yeah, as you can see, this is not running at full speed. Why is that? That's because I'm actually producing more than I need over here. So I need 60 per minute in terms of the thingy. I'm producing about 90 per minute. So yeah, that is going to be ugly, but that's okay. Why is this not running at optimal speed? This is... okay, sorry, I think I need to double up on this output over here, because, yeah, this is producing 240 per minute, this is only taking in 120, so this actually needs to be completely doubled up. And there we go, now it's running a lot smoother. It's of course running at 50% here and here, but that's by design. And yeah, as you can see, this is now really nice, and we've also doubled up on the unpainted version. Actually, if you copy a recipe and you then put in painted blocks. So for example, here I copied the blue ones, and I have of course blue recipes in here, but I am now feeding it unpainted blocks. It will automatically adjust the color of the recipe, so you don't need to go through all of these buildings and, you know, set the recipes again. It will actually do that for you, and it works the other way around as well. If you have an unpainted version and you start feeding it painted blocks, it will automatically adjust the recipe in order to match the painted version. So that's a really nice quality of life thing. Now, as you can see, I am currently destroying all of this stuff. That's mostly because then I can kind of see if this is working. But now we need to start to recombine things. Okay, so I can just combine the middle ones over here, and then I need to, you know, use some belts and tunnels in order to recombine everything else. As you can see, I'm now making this part over here, I'm making that part over here, and then last but not least, we're making that one. So now I need to hook this up to the advanced refinery, and we're good to go. Oh right, I'm also going to need some of that solarite coming in, of course, so let's add another set of cranes over here, and I do have this island over here that I can unlock that has some of that solarite on it, so we can easily export it all the way up here. Okay, there we go. Now all I need to do is make sure we're actually upgrading this as well, because, you know, there's no reason not to, I think, because that just means more production for the same cost. But we're not quite there yet, because in order to make yellow paint, we need the yellow pigment, but we also need the luminol. Luminol is made in a chemical plant by means of oil and lumite, and lumite is made in a lumite reactor. So, you know, we're going to need to set up a couple of these as well. Since for these recipes I'm going to need some more blue stuff, I decided to go back to the island we just were on, where we were producing the pigment, and rearrange everything. So I scooted this up a little bit to the top, and that leaves some more room to put in a second basic refinery with a blue pigment. And yeah, that just basically allows me to double up on the paint. Now I have an overflow splitter over here to make sure that the 30 per minute, I should say, blue paint that I'm producing here that I'm not needed is going to be recombined with the 90 that I'm producing here. So this is actually a full belt of blue paint that I have sitting here to be used wherever I need it to. With that sorted, let's hop over to the next island and let's see. So we need to make some pretty complicated stuff actually. Although I don't think it's going to be too bad. So let's start with this one. This is basically just a 4x4 doubled up with a nice little blue square in the middle. And then on the other half, it's slightly more complex. It's still that square in the middle, but we also have these black things on the side. So that should be pretty straightforward to make. So let's make some slices so we have the base shape that we need. Then let's stamp out this little section here that we need to turn blue. Now I can put in a splitter like this and a recombiner like that, because we know half of this is already in the color that it needs to be. So we can just put that like this, and then all we need to do, once we're getting around to it, we can just put the blue square in here. Then for the next part, what we can do is punch out the middle part like this. That leaves us with the two pieces we need to paint black. And then once we have those, all we need to do is stitch those back together as well. And then of course, once we have put them back together, we can stitch those back together as well. And then we have the black and white version of the back piece that we need here. And that only leaves us with those little squares that I've been deleting so far that we need to turn into a blue piece, and then we're good to go. Let's combine the two little pieces we cut out first, because that will allow us to be a little bit more efficient about our ink. Something like this, and then we can take these things and make sure we just double up on this. We can make it a nice little blue block, because you remember, that's actually what it is. So we don't necessarily need to combine them into two flat surfaces first. I think this will actually save us a little bit of copy pasting. So let's see, if we do it like that, then we should be able to plug that in. Right, that, yep. And then what we need to do, and again, I love how fast you can build stuff in here once you figure out what you want. Slide that right over there. Yes, and that is exactly what we needed. Okay, while that starts building up the Lumite reactor, let's take a second look at this. So yeah, what I'm actually inclined to do is start out with these squares again, cut out this piece, then cut out that piece, then cut out that piece. And that way we can color things one by one, and then just stick the remains on here after coloring it black. Okay, so let's slice and dice, and again we are combining two belts of output in order to reach the max capacity that we can handle for one Lumite reactor. Yeah, so this is going to be 120 per minute. That is fine. We're going to need to split this up very similar to what we've done before again. And let's see. So we are gonna have to have this probably moved down here, because otherwise I'm gonna run out of space. And then let's put in a couple of stampers. Now, let me think it for a moment. This is essentially going to do the same thing over and over, right? So let's do this like this, and then we cut out this piece over here. There we go. And then that piece is gonna have to be painted black. We don't necessarily need to do it like this, but this is going to be operating at what, 60? So that it means we also need to double up on this, move this a little bit, put a splitter on it like so. Now, for that piece down there, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put in another one of those. I am gonna cut this. There we go. I was about to say, can't I do that? But yes, I can. Okay, so this is going to be exactly this piece, which is going to need to be painted blue. I'll deal with that in a second, but first of all, I put in another one of these stampers to cut out the part that needs to be painted black. That is this part under here. I assume it's black at least. Yeah, that is this part under here. And as you can see, that is now coming out here. I'm splitting it up because the monoturners are only at half speed, and that should take care of that. Okay, now if I want to be a little bit safe with how much ink I'm using, I could actually combine these two things over here. That means I need to scooch this up a little bit to make space for a belt. So let's see how I can make that happen. So something like this. So I am taking those things I cut out now, bringing them up here, recombining them with the blocks. I moved the painting facility a little bit. It's all quite constrained, so this is not my favorite look, I have to say, but you know, it works. I'm painting the combined blocks at the same rate as before up here. And then these are going to go in here, and we're cutting out the things that we just combined. So you don't need to pay attention to how you put them together, so it's easy to, you know, split them back up again. But other than that, yeah, that should do the trick. Now I have a filter sorter over here where I am filtering out the squares just to make sure it's always the squares that go on this belt. And assuming I actually put in a scrapper here because the building is now done, yeah, you can see this is working like intended. So now all I need to do, the top build is working again, is stitch together the bottom build. which looks a little bit like this. It looks a lot more complicated than it is, but we're recombining the black and white pieces over here. Then we are bringing them here, combining them with the blue piece to create the almost square. Then we start stitching together those almost squares side by side, and we flip them around again and split them up and recombine them once more into a square. And then of course we need to bring in the 2x2 pieces that I already pre-combined here with the spacing they need to have, and then put them on the large square over here. So yeah, all in all, it's pretty straightforward. And I've tried to keep it a little bit compact. And as it turns out, this is actually exact same spacing as the piece above. So now all I need to do is bring that in, and we can start really by building our Lumite reactor. So there's a couple of problems with this build in terms of where I've built it, because what I actually need to do, and if you look at the overview here, you can see what's going wrong. I still need to double up on this production because we split this off all the way in the beginning, but we're not actually using it. So I'm gonna have to split this up, I think, and rearrange this a little bit to just fit on this island. Alright, well, this took me way too long, but what I've done actually is I doubled up on the top production line we have over here, so you can see it. This is one of them, and this is one of them. It's actually easier to see with all the colors in. Then I took the one that I had down here, and what I've done actually is just had the double production line over here feeding from a single cutter, and then I doubled it up once more and built it up here in the corner. Now, bear with me, because this is going to be one of those things like, was this worth it? I don't know. But what I'm doing is I am exporting those little white pieces, combining them side by side. So this is where this machine comes in, because the parts we cut out are the ones we need, but we need them in a different color. So I'm combining those with this one. Then over here, I'm combining them once more, so we get this very ugly thing. Then up here, I'm combining them with the combined blocks. Then all of that is going to go into an ink, what is this, a painter, an ink distributor I wanted to call that, but anyway. And then similar like before, I'm splitting them up, so I have the little blue pieces coming out over here, and then we have the pieces that we actually need coming back here, and then we need to cut them again, because remember, this is combined twice, and then those are going to go on a full belt back into the machine and being redistributed, and then to be recombined into the block that we actually need. Now, I have to be honest, was this worth it? I'm not sure. As you can see, this is working at an optimal speed. I actually doubled up on the production, so we have 2 Luminite reactors here now because of this. What I meant by is this worth it, is combining all of this stuff into a single block that you then paint and then split up again. Is that worth it? It's definitely serving a purpose in terms of saving on a lot of ink. For sure. If I had to paint all of these individual pieces, I would need way more ink, and I would also need a lot more ink production, which I can now save on. So from that perspective, definitely worth it. It does make your factory look like a little bit of spaghetti though. So yeah, not really sure. Either way, you decide for yourself if you want to do that. Let's move on, because now we have the Lumite reactors. So we are producing 30 pigment per minute about, and that's the same that we're producing the Lumite. As you can see, I'm putting the Lumite into a chemical plant, which is going to allow me to make a luminol, and that goes right into this dye mixer over here, the luminol along with the yellow pigment, and that's going to produce a bit of paint. Now, as you can see, the recipe for dye is always the same. 15 in of each type is 45 out, thanks to my upgrades. So yeah, that's the 30 pigment per minute that I can process with these 2 dye mixers, as well as the 30 in total for the 2 Luminite reactors, because each of them produces 15 per minute as well. So it's 30 and 30. That was a lot of work for 90 ink per minute, but we have it up and running now. Which means it's time to start unlocking a lot of new stuff. So first of all, we can unlock the superior core facility. So that's what we want to unlock anyway, but I first have to unlock the advanced assembler. Now this is a new type of machine that can actually combine 3 items into one, but it's also going to need coolant. Now luckily coolant is super easy to produce, I'll show you that in a second. But yeah, as you can see from this little demo over here, we can actually copy and paste different items together, which is slow in terms of how much it can actually process, because as you can see the default speed is 30 per minute of each type, but it's basically going to save us some space because we can do multiple things in the same step. Now, whether or not that's going to be a massive improvement, you'll see in a moment. Let's also unlock the advanced cutter, which kind of in a similar way can cut things in a more flexible manner. Again, I'll show you that in a second. And we have the advanced stamper, which can basically do 2 operations at the same time. That is definitely going to be something we won't want. We could probably have used that in the previous build as well, but oh well. First things first, I can also now unlock the superior core facility, as well as the yellow floor upgrades. So that's going to allow us to get a little bit more throughput from all of our buildings that should start upgrading. Oh, that's actually not yellow buildings, hold on. It's the buildings that we can now start building. And of course, the most important of which is going to be the superior core facility over here, because we need those cores to make pretty much everything else after this point. However, as you can see, even though the recipes themselves aren't particularly complicated, we do need a lot of yellow stuff for this. And you just notice how much effort I needed to do just to make some yellow ink. So if you want to be a bit more conservative on how much ink you're spending, you can do the following thing. You can make giant blocks, as I've been doing over here. So I'm just melting some blocks, and then putting them together, putting those together again, and putting them together again. And yes, I could use the advanced machine for this to make this a little easier. But anyway, we're making giant 8x8x8 blocks. So these are actually 8 full blocks in total. And then we're just painting them all at the same time. Look at those giant yellow blocks that I've painted over here. And then you can cut these up back into their normal shape again. And now I have 2 full belts. So that's 120 per minute times 2 of yellow blocks just coming out ready to be used, and with a single painter to do all of that. Now, similarly, what I've done all the way up here is do the same thing, but then for blue blocks. And those are coming from the other side of the map, so it's a little bit of spaghetti. But as you can see, now I have just several belts of normal blocks, blue blocks. These will be 2 full belts, by the way. The optimization, there you go. As you can see, the belt needed a little while to start up. And I'm also making coolant over here. Now, coolant is actually super easy to make. All you need is a chemical plant. You need some polyrocks, so these are the unmelted blocks. These blocks, actually. And then you need the unmelted blue hexacrystals as well. So you do need a little bit of those rare materials, but other than that, that will give you some coolant. And I can use this coolant in order to power some of my machines. So the idea behind this new strategy is to make the colored blocks in one place and then just recombine them in whatever way and shape we need at the very end of the production line. So that way we can make use of the fact that we have all of this yellow production over here. We're probably going to waste some of it, but honestly, that's not going to be much of a problem as long as we are a little bit mindful of what we do. So for example, in this case, I'm cutting a block to 4 pieces like we've done a million times at this point. That means I have 240 coming out. That is what we're going to be splitting off here. So this is going to be 120, 120, and then this is going to be 60, 60, 60, 60. Now what I need is I need a 4x8 block over here. So I need to combine 2 of them together like we've done again a million times already. But what I also need is a larger block that is actually 4x12. And that's something you cannot make with a normal assembler. You can try, but it will give you notice that nope, you can only combine things up to an 8x8 ratio. I can't actually show it to you like this. But trust me, it doesn't work. What you need in order to do that is the advanced, not the advanced stamper, the advanced assembler. That allows you to put in 3 different things at the same time. And then you can actually do that like so. There you go. That's a nice large block that we can use to make this particular shape. Now, of course, in order for this to work, we are going to need some of that coolant, so I'm going to have to bring that in. Okay, so here's how that works, in case you didn't figure it out yet. The supply tank is going to be the building that we hook up over here. We do need to actually connect the supply tank to the machines that we wanted to work on. So there's little drones in there that's going to supply the coolant to the machine. There you go. I actually like this system so you don't have another belt going in here, because that would create a lot more spaghetti. And the drones can actually be quite far away, because this thing will do 16 operations for 1 coolant. So that is actually only going to require about 2 coolants per minute. And we're not producing a huge amount of coolant, don't get me wrong. I'm actually not sure how much it is we're producing. Something like 30, yeah. We have 2 times 15 over here. Um, but that's going to be able to power quite a few machines, depending, of course, on the speed of the machine. So the faster the machine is, the more coolant you will need. But yeah, as you can see, the single machine is not even close to taking up all of the coolant, so we're going to be fine. Now, that takes care of all the yellow stuff we need. Mostly, we only need to put in a stamper. We don't need a special stamper, so don't overdo it if you don't have to. This thing is actually only producing at 30 speed, I think. Yeah, so this is at half speed. So what we can do is stamp out this middle part. I think it was that, right? Yeah. And that means we now have the two pieces that we need. We have this piece over here with the middle piece cut out, and that's exactly, probably not a coincidence, the piece that we need over here. So that's all the yellow pieces covered. Now I just need some black and white pieces. I'm gonna skip ahead because I think you know what that looks like. And don't worry, I am going to run you through the build because there's a couple of special things that we need to pay attention. So this is the part that we just made with all the yellow pieces. And then I'm just bringing in a normal belt, just normal blocks, and I'm painting them black. And then we're cutting them up in pieces again, and we're combining some of those pieces in order to make the same build that we've made before. So I'm literally making the same yellow piece as we had here, but then the black version of it. So this is identical to the one we just made. However, if I want to combine the other two pieces, remember these pieces are larger than an 8x8 block. This is a 16 block. So in order to stick these two pieces together, again, we just made both of them, I need another advanced assembler. Even though these are just two pieces, I need an advanced assembler because the item that I'm trying to make is larger than what I can make in the normal assembler. Similarly, over here I am making the cross that I need to make, and then the cutouts that we need on top of that. In order to make that efficiently, I'm using this advanced stamper that is going to allow me to cut out a cross section. So you can stamp once and we can step twice. Actually, let me just show you. If I have a new piece coming in, I can flip that around. Then I can first make one stamp like this, and then I can select this button over here and make a second stamp, and that will allow me to make the exact two pieces that I need. Now, one of them is the wrong color, but I do need these 4 separate pieces. And in order to get those on the outsides, like I have over here, I'm gonna cut this thing in two, so I have a 2-piece and then another 2-piece thing, and I'm gonna stick those together in a way that, first of all, I'm gonna stick them back to the cross that I turned into a white one. Now this is actually still 4x8, so I can stick those two together with a normal assembler, but then in order to combine everything else, I'm gonna need those 2 pieces. This is 1 piece, but it looks like it's 2 pieces, and then the large yellow thing, and I can stick them all together, again, using a advanced assembler. Now, all of this is going to be producing at 30 per minute. This building can actually handle quite a bit more, so I want to have that doubled up. So as you can see, I have the build over here, and then I just mirror the same thing over here as well. So all I'm doing here is combining the output belts. It's a little bit of spaghetti because, you know, we are making a lot of stuff in different places, but that's literally all I'm doing. So you can see this should be running at an optimal speed. Yeah, you can see all the inputs are running at an optimal speed. The outputs are not, but this is just because those machines can handle more than they're actually doing, because we're only outputting 30 per minute at the moment. Now, could you redesign this in such a way that a lot of these machines will be running at optimal speed? Probably. Do I really want to? Not really, because I think this is a pretty compact build, and this is already going to be producing 22.5 superior cores per minute. And this is a pretty compact build that I can easily copy and paste if I want to, and I should probably do that, because remember, even though I'm actually consuming a full belt of yellow blocks over here, I have a second one over here, and all I need on top of that is some more coolant and some normal blocks. And there we go, I did exactly that. So I just doubled up on the production lines that we just set up. And the nice thing is I'm using the entire 2 belts of yellow blocks now. I am also using 1 entire belt of normal blocks. And that, you know, is kind of nice and efficient in terms of not wasting any output. And still using most of the space on the island. It's a little bit cramped, but as you can see, I am now producing the cores in 2 different places. So that's a total of, what is it, 45, I believe, per minute. And of course we can upgrade that further once we get some signs up and running. I think I'll leave it here for the moment because, you know, the cores are kind of what you need for everything else after that. So in the next few episodes, I will focus on getting the robots as well as the signs up and running. But let's keep this nice and sweet, because it's a nice way to kind of get your head around optimizing your ink usage. And honestly, you could do that from the start. It's not that needed if you're looking at the blue ink. But for example, over here, I am just making the 90 ink in total over here. So that means I can do this 3 more times without needing to make any additional ink on top of what I'm already making. And you could take this even a step further. You could make even larger blocks. But yeah, I think at some point it just becomes overkill. This is already making sure I need way less ink than it would if you would not first make the giant blocks and paint them like this. Either way, I hope you found this useful. If you're still here, you're awesome, and I do hope to catch you in the next one.